Hi everyone, I'm Robin Banerjee and I'm a psychologist at the University of Sussex. I've been doing lots of research over many years into how we develop emotionally during our childhood and our adolescence and also how we relate to each other. I've been working with EmpathyLab for many years now because they're really helping to shine a light on empathy, that ability to share and understand and care about each other's emotions. And what they've done is they've shown how that's connected with the amazing world of books and stories. And I'm so excited today to introduce another fantastic event for Empathy Day. This time, getting some incredible insights from three brilliant writers, Bourne, Malorie Blackman, and Bali Rai. And they're going to be letting us in on one of the greatest secrets of all, how authors create characters. Characters who matter to us, characters who make us feel something. I've loved reading all my life, and there's nothing better than getting lost in a book, really tuning into the lives of the characters and what's happening to them. And you feel so involved and you get drawn in so much emotionally. And that's what makes books so powerful and so moving. But how do writers actually do that? It's an amazing skill and talent, isn't it? And in this special event, you're going to get to hear from these three writers about how they do it. You'll hear from our first speaker, Bourne, about what happens when you read a book, how our amazing brains make us see and hear and feel what's going on in the lives of these fictional characters. And I hope that this will inspire every child listening to this to make your own characters. Listen to Malorie Blackman talking about going on a journey with the characters that she's created, how she gets to know them, and how she's guided by her own characters. And Bali Rai will be setting a fun writing challenge for you, all about making characters. So, writers of the future, get ready to be inspired.
Hi everyone, I'm Bourne, and I am the YA author of these books. Like, hang on, let's see if I don't drop them. These books here, and I am so delighted to be with you today to talk about empathy and how we can use empathy to create characters when we're doing our own creative work. I think empathy is the biggest superpower that human beings have, and the more that we can harness it in ourselves, the sort of better we can be as humans. And I really truly believe that increased empathy will change the world, maybe even save the world. And I really believe that reading and writing and creating is one of the best ways to harness this superpower. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about how I use empathy in my work and how you guys can learn to use empathy in your creative work. So when I was learning about empathy with EmpathyLab, what I found absolutely fascinating is that when we read stories, right, so showing in terms of our brains what's going on in neuroscience, we actually feel the feelings and emotions of this imaginary character. We're basically looking at a dead bit of wood when we read a book, and we're vividly hallucinating and experiencing these experiences as if they were happening to us. And I just think that's such a powerful thing. It's just blown my mind. In terms of creating characters, my favorite book that I read that helps to teach me about empathy is the book To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Some of you might have had to study it for your exams. Don't let that put you off. What's so great about that book is about a child called Scout. And as she is growing up, she's learning more about how not everybody experiences the world, how she experiences it, and how actually the world's quite unfair. And also how, as she gets older, she realizes that grown-ups might not really know what they're doing. And it's just an incredible book about kind of learning how to understand that the world might be different to somebody else because of the life they've lived, even if they live in the same world as you. So how do I create characters in my work, and how can I help you create characters and learn to kind of feel the feelings of this imaginary person or animal or creature that you have decided to make up in your head? And I would say the most important starting point into writing empathetically is to learn and understand your own emotions first. Like, in order to be able to create a realistic character who has realistic feelings and realistic reactions to things, you've got to understand yourself first. To me, the most important part of empathy is learning how to name your own feelings. So I've tried to really learn over the course of my life to never label an emotion good or bad and try and run away from the bad ones. So to just sort of be curious about every emotion that I have. So when I'm happy, I'll be like, okay, oh, this is great, love being happy. But if I'm feeling sad or angry, rather than kind of push away that discomfort, I've learned to be curious about that discomfort and to name the feeling. I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling angry. Sometimes I'm feeling sad and angry because I'm hungry. You know, you can get really minute detail into these emotions. And so first, it's about being curious about your own emotions. And then, to me, a really important question to ask of ourselves, and then of any character that we're writing or any person that we ever meet in the street, is what's happened to you? Because a lot of the time we see people as right or wrong, black and white. I write a lot about mental illness in my books, and I hate how it's always about like what's wrong with someone. And I think a really powerful question to ask of yourself and of your characters, what's happened to you? Because in the story of our own lives, our emotions always make sense. Even if from an outside point of view, you're like, where has that come from? I love reading reviews of books online, because you could look at any book on Amazon or Goodreads. And some people have been like, this book is the most incredible thing that's ever happened. And other people were like, 1 star, this book is terrible. And it's exactly the same set of words on a page, but what a human being is bringing to that book, that same set of words, is their whole life right up into that moment and what has happened to us. So yes, my top tips for creating characters is start being curious about your own emotions. Maybe keep a diary. Maybe when you're feeling a feeling, try and name it. So you learn about this kind of emotional language. And then when you're having these feelings, ask yourself, what's happened to me? Imagine you're a character in the story of your own life. Sort of see it that way, and you'll realize that your emotion makes sense. Maybe your behaviors make sense if you trace back the story of your life. And then I think that gives you such a good starting point to start creating other characters. Because when you sit with an empty page and you want to start writing about someone who isn't you, you've got that shared experience. What's happened to this person? Ask yourself that question. Up until that moment that the story begins, what has happened to them to make them the person who they are? And then whenever they're feeling something, you always put that in the context of the story that's come before, the story that you have chosen to write about. Just as we are all, for people in this present moment, all our stories up until now, and every feeling we have is through that past experience. So why not have a go? Why don't you start creating your own characters, start exploring your own empathy superpowers? I know that Bali has got some really great writing exercises to get you going off. Please do share these using the hashtag Empathy Day. And coming up, I'm very excited to announce we've got Malorie Blackman, who's going to be talking to us about how she creates her characters. So thank you so much for coming. Enjoy Empathy Day. I'm Holly Bourne, and yeah, have a great time creating these imaginary people and out of your own brain. It's the closest you'll ever come to being a magician.
Well, the way I try and make sure that the reader is drawn into one of my stories is to really know my characters before I start writing, and try and make sure they're as three-dimensional as possible. They seem like real people when you're reading. So they're not perfect. They have their flaws, like all of us. They have things that you're going to like about them. They're going to have things that you're not going to like about them. But it means that they seem more like real people, hopefully. So what I do before I even start writing is I will do a mini biography for all my major characters, and I will write down what kind of music they're into, what kind of food they like, what kind of food they don't like, what do their friends think is the best thing about them and the worst thing about them, and so on. So it's not just about what they look like, but it's also about who they are. And I try and really get to know them before I even start writing. writing. And that way, when I'm writing and suddenly my plot goes off in a different direction, I have to trust that my characters know what they're doing, and just kind of follow them and go with them. So I feel like sometimes I've got all these characters in my head and I'm just desperately trying to record what they're doing. That's when I know a story's working, when the characters feel like real people to me.
Hi, I'm Bali Rai. I'm the YA and children's author of books such as Soccer Squad, Min's War, Unarranged Marriage, Fire City, and many more. I've been interested in empathy since I began my writing career, and way before as a writer. I've always been interested in how people come across in books and how we create characters and how we get into their shoes, and more than getting into their shoes. One of my favorite definition of empathy is feeling with the heart of another human being, you know, really understanding how they feel about the world. The introduction to characters are they're the thing that connects the human beings. Basically, a story is about a connection between two groups of human beings. You've got characters and then you've got the audience, readers, viewers, however you look at it, whichever format. In order for them to connect, the emotional sort of arc the character goes on, how they're feeling, is for me, the single most important thing. So it's really, really important, because for readers, as readers, we're transported into stories by characters. We're transported into the plot lines. We care about the plot lines because we end up caring about the characters. It's vitally important for me as a writer to try and understand that, and it's something that I understand as a reader too. We've heard some really, really, really good advice from Holly and Malorie, both fantastic writers that I know, about the importance of knowing characters and sort of understanding their likes and dislikes, who they are as people. My particular activity, we call it the fridge activity, because when we were first talking about EmpathyLab, one of the things I said was I like to know what my characters have for breakfast the day before they come into my story. So I'm quite obsessive. I will write reams and reams of detail about sort of characters. And one of the things that we started thinking about was, well, what would be in your character's fridge, and how would that allow you to understand them as a character when you're writing them, but also allow the reader to get a better understanding of them and to empathize with them. And one of the ones I thought about was that you could have, for example, a really annoying older sibling, maybe a brother who's decided to become vegan and wants to have a separate shelf for their food compared to everybody else's. Perhaps you have a particular thing about the color red. For whatever reason, it could be a personality trait, could just be something that, you know, you just love the color red, and so you have a section in the fridge where everything's red. It could be that your dad, I don't know, or an adult in your family has decided that they're going to go on some kind of diet, but the other adult in your family, if you have another one, has a separate shelf with all the kind of cakes and stuff on, so there's a kind of competition going on. It's about understanding how characters' lives work. So when we introduce a character at the beginning of a story, we're not introducing a problem straight away or a dilemma. We're not sort of hitting the reader over the head with, this is what the story is about, my character is angry, my character is sad. What we're doing is using the world around us to portray the character's emotions and how they feel. So it could be a half-eaten chocolate bar, it could be a can of Coke or Pepsi or something that's been left open, a pop can, any number of things. You can also do it with colors. You can do it with animals. What if you were an animal based on your personality? What animal would you be and why? If you were a color based on your personality, what color would you be and why? How are you feeling at the beginning of the story? Are you in a yellow, bright, sunny mood? Maybe yellow, bright and sunny actually puts you in a bad mood. It's about trying to understand how the character actually feels and then drawing the reader into their world. And I've done it on numerous occasions. I did it with a book which is sitting just behind me, The Harder They Fall. One of the central characters, the narrator Cal, is named after a jazz singer from the 1950s called Cab Calloway. He has two very, I call them kind of hippie, veggie parents, which is a bit of a in-joke with a friend of mine whose parents were very similar, and he gets dragged to yoga classes, and you know they decide that they're going to be vegan for a couple of days a week and various things like that. And the contents of the fridge reflect the mood that his mum or his dad are in on any given day, and they allow us to get a sense of his life and his position within the household and how he feels about his mum and his dad and what's going on. It also allows for a bit of comedy. When he's complaining about, I don't know, having to drink cabbage soup that's been liquefied, etc., etc. So I've done that with all of my characters, starting with Unarranged Marriage. It's about knowing who they are, and knowing who your character is isn't just about knowing where they're going or how they feel about where they're going within the story. It's about knowing the peripheral stuff, the stuff around them. So their favorite color, the size of their shoes, whether they would choose, you know, when they open the fridge, would they choose a can of Coke or a can of Pepsi? Would they choose the pepperoni pizza or something a little bit more healthy? What's their favorite flavor of yogurt? And this allows us to add layers of understanding when we describe the characters, their world and their emotions. We get layers of understanding. And descriptive writing, particularly when it comes to empathy and emotion, is like an onion. Onions grow from a kernel outwards in layers. And what we're doing is we're adding a layer and then another layer, and the more layers you add to your character, the better your reader's understanding and the greater connection they'll have, and therefore empathy is almost guaranteed, because they are going to want to follow the character, they're going to want to be part of their lives, they want to know what happens, and we learn to respect, admire, even come to love our characters. And if you don't understand what I mean by love our characters, find a Harry Potter fan and say something mean about Harry Potter and see what you get. This is the basic emotional connection that we get with our characters, and it's very, very important to create that. And there are a myriad number of ways you can do it, and that's mine. It's one of the many ways I choose. Now, we are very, very grateful that you have chosen to stop by today. I'm going to set you a little creative writing challenge, which is to create your own characters. One of the things I like to use is to pick 3 things in a room. So you go to your living room, your kitchen, it doesn't really matter. Pick 3 things and describe your character based on those 3 things. So why are those 3 things important to your character? Do they signify some kind of memory? Do they signify something that they do, a sort of hobby that they have? Really doesn't matter. Just pick 3 things in any room, wherever you are, and use those to develop a character. But each of those 3 things must signify something to your character, to their life, to their memories, to their family, or something along those lines. And again, if you want to open the fridge and do that, feel free. Just try not to eat everything in there, which is my temptation usually when I open the fridge. As I said, it's really, really cool that you've chosen to join us today. It's really pleasing that so many of you stopped by. I hope you have a lot of fun making your characters. Creating characters should be fun. It should be something that you find rewarding. It should be something that sort of excites you, you know, when you want to share these characters and their ideas with the world. You can tag EmpathyLab on Twitter at EmpathyLab UK, or you can use the hashtag EmpathyLab for the day. That'd be absolutely fantastic. It'd be really, really good to have your support across social media. And other than that, I'm Bali Rai, and I just want to say bye. Thank you very much.